Somebody asked me during my stream last Friday to play the legendary tier American battleship Montana because they were close to getting the Montana from the Bureau project and they wanted to know what to expect. I did acquiesce to the request at the time, but I proceeded to have a very mediocre game in the Montana, so I decided to take it out over the weekend to see if I couldn't do any better, and of course I did. And that is what I want to show you today. If you are this person who is close to getting the Montana from the Bureau project, or maybe you already have it and don't play it that much because you're not exactly sure how, then that's what I intend to answer in this game. And there are only really two things you need to know about the Montana. First is that it has 12 16-inch guns, and these are some of the most consistently accurate battleship guns in the game, at least in my opinion. They excel at punishing broadsides, as that Minotaur just found out, having lost 20,000 hit points to our first salvo. Now notice what I'm doing with the Montana, because this is important. I think a lot of people would probably push the Montana more toward those three ships, the Kleber, the Minotaur, and the GK, in an attempt to bow tank them. I'm not doing that. I'm kiting away from those three ships, and that is allowing me to continue to have all four of my turrets on target. Another shot out at the Minotaur. Unfortunately, I think this one is less spectacular. 3 overpens and 1 regular penetration, although we do bring our damage done total up near 30,000. We're going behind the island now, and we're using it to block the enemy from seeing us as we conduct a turn that exposes broadside to the position of the GK. Wary of the torpedoes cutting across the screen there. Those will be gearing torpedoes, I'm sure, so they would have the range to hit us, but they're not going to come anywhere close. We're going too slowly around this island. But the goal is to push our ship forward a little bit more. Both the GK and the Minotaur, as far as we can tell, are still giving broadside to our position, and we want to be able to capitalize on that broadside should they get spotted again. The problem here is that our destroyer, who entered that Charlie Cap, decided to play a little bit aggressively, and as a result he's had to make a quick return back to port. That's okay though, we've still got a cruiser pushing up who's going to provide us some spotting. That cruiser is caught bow in to a GK and a Minotaur, though, which is not a good thing. Being caught bow in a cruiser to superior numbers like this is usually a recipe for demise, although I think that cruiser is in Alaska, so he's probably going to be surviving for a while longer. The GK is pushing in, not giving us the best angle, and here I think you'll sort of see the downside of the Montana, which is that it has 16-inch guns at the legendary tier. These are accurate 16-inch guns, of course, but there's nothing that separates them from, other American battleship 16-inch guns except the high number, 12. No other American battleship except the Kansas has that many guns. That's really the gimmick on this ship. It's got a lot of guns, it's got a very heavy broadside, these guns are very accurate. So as the GK continues to push in toward our cruiser and continues to give us broadside, we're going to continue to sit here punishing it. Of course, we are taking some shots from both the gearing and the Minotaur now, but we've got this island to the right of our ship. We're going to try to get one more shot on this GK before we sail past this island and hopefully block both the Minotaur and the gearing from shooting at us, and also avoid any torpedoes the gearing might have launched in this direction. There's the next shot out at the GK. This position, though, is untenable. We've got a battleship, a cruiser, and a destroyer over here, and it's just the Alaska left. We're able to assist the Alaska in taking out that GK, giving broadside to the Yamato, though. That is one thing you want to be careful of in the Montana. It's not exactly the most maneuverable battleship. It takes a long time to turn, long time to start and stop, and if you are spotted broadside in front of a Yamato, well, things are probably not going to go very well for you. We're still broadside, we're trying to turn to angle away. We get a shot of our own out as the Yamato shells come in. They do citadel us, at least once there, I think, and we lose a lot of health. We don't trade super poorly with the Yamato in return, removing 12k of his hit points, but he's pushing bow in now, and the Yamato can overmatch both the bow and stern plating of the Montana, which means you probably don't want to get too close to it, and you certainly don't want to present your bow in the form of bow tanking to the Yamato, because it won't work. The Yamato will just push right through the bow with its armor-piercing shells and overmatch. Same thing with the stern. You want to present the side armor to the Yamato, and hopefully his shells come in and hit either the heavily armored side or the heavily armored deck. The Montana does have 38 millimeters of deck armor along the middle of the ship, which means that at least that deck armor can bounce Yamato shells at distance. Though the Yamato has disappeared, taking a look at the minimap, constantly keeping an eye on it, we see the Minotaur again, so we'll take another shot there, and we're just sort of waiting for the Yamato to appear again. But that is really the goal of the Montana. It is a battleship that's best played at longer to more medium ranges, and the idea is to move it around the map in such a way that you can access the broadsides. That's why we're turning back to the Charlie Cap where we initially spawned. We last saw the Yamato pushing forward toward Bravo, and if you look at the minimap, he is sort of traveling to the left of the screen, which may mean he's going to turn and give broadside to the center as he moves more toward Charlie, perhaps, or maybe he is trying to move his battleship into such a position that he can get the broadsides of the cruiser and the friendly battleship in the center. Either way, our maneuvering is keeping us mostly on the Yamato's broadside, although as you can see he is starting to turn away and kite, so once our guns are reloaded and the salvo is ready, we're probably not going to be as effective as we might be, and that does come down to the 16-inch guns, not being able to overmatch anything at the tier. Still, we should be able to get a good chunk out of his superstructure or upper belt armor, provided he's not angled super well. And the results are a rather underwhelming chunk, but he does get blapped by the other battleship near us there. Minotaur is spotted again. We don't necessarily want to push into his crazy AP spam. Even if we are angled or bow in, that AP is still going to pepper our superstructure and take away a lot of our hit points. And there's no real reason to push in toward the Minotaur. Our team is taking the Alpha Cap, and it's just the Minotaur, the Yamato, and another enemy cruiser left, although it is down to a 4v4 with 7 minutes still left to go in this game, so this really wasn't a spectacular game in World of Warships Legends. I usually don't like to show games that are this run-of-the-mill, but I think the positioning here in the Montana works out well, and that's something I think you should consider when you're playing not just the Montana, but any battleship. There has been talk lately of a dispersion bug that is supposedly fixed by, quote, resetting your commanders. This is nonsense, of course. If you follow TommyBoy601, you'll see he did a video showing that this bug does not exist and resetting your commanders does absolutely nothing. In fact, when I first heard this bug, it reminded me of ancient shamans trying to sacrifice a goat in order so that its blood would please the sun god and prompt him to raise the sun to create daylight the next day. That's the level of superstition that I got from this whole theory that you can reset your commander and improve your dispersion. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I feel like too many players consider the accuracy on their battleship by way of their builds, by stacking as many accuracy inspirations as possible on top of one another, and thinking that this is going to be the thing that helps them be the most effective in their battleship. That is not the case, in my opinion. Where you put your battleship on the map is far more important than how many inspirations you have affecting your accuracy. In fact, if you want to see my commander build, it's William Sims. I do have one accuracy inspiration, Angelo Iachino, who improves the battleship's shell grouping based on what type of ship you're shooting at. And then I have Kondo in order to get a little bit of extra concealment as the other inspiration. Of course, I have the concealment module in the third slot. That gives me 13.1 km concealment as opposed to the regular concealment that you would have if you didn't use either the concealment mod or condo. I think it would be somewhere around 15 km, and that's just too visible. You'll get spotted pretty much as soon as you spawn, and then when you're spotted, that means the enemy can shoot at you, and they will. Thus, I put concealment on my battleships rather than double accuracy inspirations in order to facilitate better positioning. Because the goal, as always in a battleship, is going to be positioning. Putting your battleship in a place on the map where you can get all of your guns sinking their shells into the enemy broadside. That is always the goal in a battleship, and no matter how many accuracy inspirations you place on your commander, if you don't attempt to position well, then you're not always going to be having the greatest result. And I think that is my main message for you today, is use the Montana to get access to broadsides by moving your battleship around the map. Hope that helps. If so, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.